Real Appointments versus Fake Intent, The Reason Your Deals Keep Falling Through. By David Russo. You don't actually lose deals because customers say no. You lose deals because you keep showing up to appointments that were never real in the first place. I'll swing by. I'm running errands sometime this morning, and suddenly your whole day is gone, waiting on a sale that was never actually scheduled. Most salespeople think they're being responsive. They're not. They're being available for people who are never committed. Introduction. In sales, most people think the problem is rejection. They assume the hard part is hearing no, competing on price, or convincing someone to move forward. But that's not really where most deals are lost. The bigger problem is something quieter and a lot more dangerous. It's the illusion of progress. It's the customer who sounds interested, the one who asks questions, the one who says, "I'll come by later," or "I'm running errands," or "I'll stop in this morning." On the surface, it feels like a live deal. It feels like something is moving forward, but nothing is actually confirmed. No time is locked in. No commitment is made. No structure exists. And that's where salespeople start losing their days without realizing it. They clear their schedule for a 10 a.m. They wait around for a sometime this morning. They stay available, just in case a deal shows up. But the reality is simple. If there is no specific time, there is no appointment. What they really have is interest, not intent. And interest is one of the most misleading things in sales. Because interest talks. Interest asks questions. Interest sounds promising. But interest doesn't show up on time. And it doesn't always show up at all. The danger is not that people say no. The danger is that they say maybe, and you treat it like yes. Over time, this creates a pattern most salespeople don't notice until it's costing them real money and real energy. Days get broken into pieces. Focus gets scattered. Real opportunities get delayed. Because attention is tied up in conversations that were never grounded in commitment. This is how you end up working all day, without actually working on anything that moves forward. This video is about breaking that pattern. It's about learning the difference between a real appointment and fake intent. Because once you can see that difference clearly, everything changes. You stop reacting to every message like it's a deal. You stop holding your time open for people who haven't earned it. And you start filtering conversations based on structure, not emotion. Real buyers behave differently. They choose a time, they confirm it, and they show up ready to move forward. Everything else is just noise disguised as opportunity. And once you understand that, you don't just become better at closing deals. You become better at protecting your time, your energy, and your focus. That's where real consistency in sales actually comes from. Not working harder, but knowing who is actually real. Chapter 1. The Illusion of the Appointment. Most salespeople don't realize they're not actually working real appointments most of the time. They think they are, but they're not. What they're really working is a list of conversations that sound like appointments. "I'll swing by later." "I'm just running errands right now. I should be there around 10. Let me see how my morning goes." None of these are appointments. They're intentions. And intentions are not commitments. But here's the problem. In sales, those two things feel the same at first. When someone expresses interest, asks for pricing, or starts comparing options, your brain naturally upgrades them in importance. You start preparing. You start planning your day around them. You start thinking, this could be a deal. And that's exactly where the illusion begins. Because nothing has actually been confirmed. No time has been locked in. No agreement has been made. No real structure exists. Yet mentally, you've already placed them into your schedule. That's the trap. A real appointment is simple. It has one defining characteristic, a specific time that both people have agreed to. Not later, not this morning, not "I'll stop by." A time. Without that, what you have is not an appointment, it's a possibility. And possibilities are dangerous in sales, because they disguise themselves as progress. You start adjusting your focus around them. *Q avoid stepping away from your phone. *Q hesitate to start other tasks. *Q stay mentally on call, just in case they show up. And suddenly, your entire day becomes shaped around someone who hasn't actually committed to anything. This is how salespeople lose control of their time without realizing it. Not through bad deals, but through unstructured ones. The worst part is that these maybe appointments rarely fail loudly. They don't usually cancel. They don't always say no. They just slowly dissolve. The customer gets busy. The timing becomes unclear. The conversation fades. And eventually, nothing happens. Meanwhile, you've already spent hours thinking about it, preparing for it, and waiting for it. That's the illusion. It feels like movement, but it's actually stagnation. Real appointments don't behave like that. A real beer says, "I'll be there at 2:30. They confirm it. And more often than not, they show up. There's clarity in it. There's structure. And structure is what separates serious buyers from casual interest. The mistake most salespeople make is treating interest as a signal of structure. But interest is just conversation. It's not commitment. And until a time is set, you don't have an appointment, you have a story that could go in any direction. Once you start recognizing this clearly, something important changes. You stop rearranging your day around uncertainty. You stop reacting to vague plans like they're confirmed events. And you start protecting your time like it has value, because it does. Not every interested customer deserves space in your schedule. Only the ones who can commit to one. That's the first filter. And once you start using it, everything in sales becomes clearer from that point forward. Chapter 2. Interest is not intent. One of the biggest mistakes in sales is assuming that conversation equals commitment. It doesn't. Just because someone is engaged doesn't mean they are ready to move forward. They might be asking questions. They might be comparing options. They might even sound excited. But none of that automatically means they intend to buy now or even soon. This is where most salespeople get pulled off track. Because interest feels like progress. A customer asking about trims, pricing, availability, or features can easily feel like someone getting close. You start thinking, they're serious. You start preparing numbers. You start mentally moving them into your active pipeline. But interest is only information gathering. Intent is decision making. And those are two completely different stages. Interest says, asterisk, tell me more about this CRV touring. Asterisk, what's the difference between these trims? Asterisk, do you have anything in stock? Intent says, asterisk, I want to come in at 2 o'clock and see the car. Asterisk, if this works, I'm ready to move forward today. Asterisk, hold that unit. I'm on my way. One is curiosity, the other is commitment. The problem is that curiosity is loud, and commitment is quiet. Curious buyers ask more questions than serious buyers sometimes do. That's what makes it misleading. The more someone talks, the more active they feel, but activity is not the same as direction. In fact, some of the most talkative customers never convert, while the most serious buyers often communicate less and act more. This is why so many salespeople end up overinvesting in the wrong conversations. They mistake engagement for readiness. They think, asterisk, they're still texting me, so they must be close. Asterisk, they're asking for numbers, so they're serious. Asterisk, they're comparing models, so they're going to buy soon. But none of that guarantees intent. Intent shows up in structure. It shows up in specifics. Asterisk a time. Asterisk a place. Asterisk a clear next step. Without those, you're still in the interest phase no matter how active the conversation feels. This is where discipline becomes more important than effort, because effort will push you to respond. Discipline will push you to qualify. And qualifying means asking one simple question internally. Is this person moving toward a decision? Or just gathering information? If they are gathering information, your role is not to build a deal, it's to provide clarity, without losing control of your time. If they are making decisions, then you invest fully. Most sales frustration comes from not separating those two roles. You end up treating every conversation like a potential close, which creates pressure, inconsistency, and wasted energy. But once you start respecting the difference between interest and intent, your entire workflow changes. You stop chasing every question. You stop reacting to every message. You stop building your day around people who haven't defined theirs. And instead, you start focusing on the only buyers who matter, the ones who show intent through action, not conversation. Because in the end, interest doesn't buy anything. Intent does. Chapter 3. I'll be there soon means nothing. There are certain phrases in sales that feel like movement, but create zero certainty. One of the most common is, I'll be there soon. At first, it sounds reasonable. The customer is still coming. They're still engaged. They haven't disappeared. So, your mind fills in the blanks. Asterisk, they're on their way. Asterisk, they're just finishing something up. Asterisk, they'll show up any minute. And because of that, you stay ready. You stay available. You hold your time open. But here's the issue. Soon is not a time. It's not a commitment. It's not a structure. It's a delay wrapped in uncertainty. And in sales, uncertainty is expensive, because the moment your schedule starts reacting to soon, you stop controlling your day. You stop starting other tasks. You stop stepping away. You stop focusing fully on anything else. You're now waiting, and waiting is one of the most dangerous habits in commission-based work, because it feels like you're being responsible, but you're actually just being reactive. A real appointment removes waiting. A real appointment sounds like, asterisk, I'll be there at 11:30. Asterisk, I can come in at 2:15. Asterisk, let's meet at 4 o'clock. There is no ambiguity. There is no interpretation. There is only time. I'll be there soon, on the other hand, creates a moving target. Soon could mean 10 minutes. It could mean 2 hours. It could mean not at all. And the salesperson is left trying to manage all three possibilities at once. This is how entire days get consumed without anything actually happening. You stay at the office just in case. You delay leaving just in case. You keep checking your phone just in case. But the customer is not operating on urgency, they're operating on convenience. And convenience always wins over your schedule unless you set structure. The truth is, people don't lie when they say soon. They just don't define it. And without definition, there is no accountability. That's why soon cannot be treated like a real appointment. It must be converted or discarded. Converted means, asterisk, what time specifically works for you? Asterisk, do you mean closer to 11 or 1? Asterisk, let's lock a time so I'm here for you. If they can't answer that, then what you're dealing with is not a confirmed visit, it's an open possibility. And possibilities are not something you build your day around. This is where discipline becomes a separator between average and strong salespeople. Average salespeople stay available for soon. Strong salespeople only commit to time, because once you accept soon as valid structure, you lose control of your calendar. And once you lose control of your calendar, you lose consistency in your results. Not because you're not working hard, but because you're working reactively. Every interruption feels important. Every message feels urgent. Every maybe feels like a deal. But real sales don't come from reacting to uncertainty. They come from controlling certainty. So the next time someone says, I'll be there soon, remember, you don't have an appointment yet. You have a window of possibility. And your job is not to wait inside that window. It's to either close it into a real time or move on until it becomes one. Chapter 4. The Text Message Trap. Texting has changed sales more than most people realize, and not always for the better. On the surface, it feels efficient. Quick answers, easy communication, no pressure phone calls, everything stays moving. But in reality, texting often replaces structure with noise. Instead of creating real appointments, it creates ongoing conversations that feel productive but rarely lead anywhere. This is the trap. The more you text, the more you feel like something is happening even when nothing is being decided. A customer asks, asterisk, what's the price on this one? Asterisk, do you have the touring? Asterisk, what colors are available? And you respond. Then they respond again and again. Now you're in a loop. There's activity, but no direction. No time is set. No commitment is made. No visit is confirmed. But emotionally, it feels like progress because the conversation is active. That's the danger. Texting gives the illusion of momentum without requiring any real decision from the customer. They can asterisk ask questions at their convenience. Asterisk pause the conversation whenever they want. Asterisk re-engage when it suits them. Asterisk and still feel in the process. Meanwhile, the salesperson is doing the opposite. Asterisk staying available. Asterisk responding quickly. Asterisk keeping the conversation alive. Asterisk waiting for it to turn into something real. And this imbalance slowly drains your time and focus, because every message feels like it might be the one that turns into a deal. So, you keep responding, but responding is not the same as advancing. Advancing requires structure, and structure requires commitment. The problem with texting is that it rarely forces commitment. It allows people to stay in a state of maybe indefinitely, and maybe is where sales go to stall. Think about what usually doesn't happen in long text conversations. Asterisk a specific appointment gets locked in immediately. Asterisk a firm time gets set without hesitation. Asterisk a clear next step gets agreed upon on the first exchange. Instead, it drifts. This is why experienced salespeople eventually learn a key rule. Texting is for confirming structure, not creating it. If there is no appointment yet, texting should not be the main tool used to build one, because the longer the conversation stays in text form, the easier it becomes for the customer to stay non-committal. A phone call or in-person interaction changes that dynamic. It introduces clarity. Asterisk, when do you want to come in? Asterisk, let's set a time right now. Asterisk, I'll have everything ready for you at 3 o'clock. Now there is direction. Now there is accountability. Texting, on the other hand, often avoids that moment of commitment, and because of that, it becomes a comfortable space for the customer, but an unproductive one for the salesperson. This is where many deals quietly fade, not because the customer said no, but because the conversation never turned into structure. It stayed in discussion mode too long. So the key shift is simple, but critical. Stop using texting as the place where deals are built. Use it as a tool to confirm times, reinforce appointments, and support already structured conversations. Anything beyond that becomes entertainment, not advancement. Once you make that distinction, your entire pipeline changes. You stop feeling busy from messages that don't matter, and you start focusing only on conversations that lead to a defined time, a defined place, and a real opportunity. Because in sales, momentum doesn't come from texting more. It comes from turning text into structure and structure into action. Chapter 5. The Standby Salesperson Problem. There's a version of sales that looks busy from the outside, but produces very little on the inside. It's the standby salesperson. Always available, always responsive, always ready in case something happens. On paper, this sounds like a good thing. Being available feels like being committed. It feels like you're doing your job well, ready for customers, ready for opportunities, ready to move when needed. But in reality, standby mode is one of the fastest ways to lose control of your time and your results. Because when you're on standby, you're not actually working a plan, you're reacting to other people's uncertainty. You're waiting for I might come by later. I'm running errands. I'll let you know when I'm close. And you organize your entire day around possibilities that were never defined. That's not structure. That's disruption. The problem is that standby mode feels responsible. You tell yourself, I don't want to miss the deal. What if they show up and I'm not there? It only takes a few hours to wait. But those few hours rarely stay a few hours. They stretch. They scatter. They interrupt everything else you could have been doing. And worse, they often lead to nothing. So, you end up in a cycle where you're not fully working on new opportunities. You're not fully present in your personal time. And you're not actually closing anything in the meantime. You're just waiting. And waiting is not a sales strategy. It's a reaction to uncertainty disguised as professionalism. Real salespeople don't operate in standby mode. They operate in structure. Structure looks like I have a 10:30 appointment. I have a 1 o'clock delivery. I have a 3:15 walkthrough. Everything has a time. Everything has a place. Everything is defined. When structure exists, your day is protected. When it doesn't, your day becomes negotiable. And once your day becomes negotiable, every customer starts to influence your schedule without committing to it. That's the core issue with standby behavior. It transfers control away from you and gives it to people who haven't made a decision yet. You end up reacting to vague messages, loose intentions, and maybe plans. Meanwhile, real buyers, the ones who actually commit, are often treated the same as non-buyers because everything feels equally urgent when you're in standby mode. That's where efficiency breaks down, because not all customers deserve equal access to your time. Some are actively in a buying process, others are just exploring. If you treat both the same, you lose the ability to prioritize correctly, and prioritization is what separates consistent performers from inconsistent ones. The solution isn't to ignore customers or become unavailable. It's to remove ambiguity from your schedule. Instead of saying, let me know when you're coming by, you move toward, what time works best for you. Instead of, I'll be around today, you move toward, I'm available at 11 o'clock, or 2:30 what works, because structure forces clarity, and clarity eliminates standby thinking. The goal is not to be less responsive. The goal is to be responsive inside a defined system. Once your time has structure, you no longer need to live in anticipation of every message. You already know, what is confirmed, what is pending, and what is not real yet. And that alone changes how you operate, because now you're no longer waiting for your day to happen. You're executing it. Chapter 6. Real versus fake buying signals. One of the hardest skills in sales is learning to read what actually matters and ignoring what doesn't, because customers don't always signal their intent clearly. In fact, some of the most misleading behavior in sales looks exactly like progress. They ask questions. They compare options. They talk about timing. They even sound motivated. And if you're not careful, you start treating all of that as buying behavior. But there's a critical difference between someone who is interested in a purchase and someone who is moving toward a purchase. And the difference is almost always visible in actions, not words. Fake buying signals tend to look like, what's the price on this one? Do you have it in stock? I'm between a few options right now. I'll stop by sometime this week. On the surface, these feel like steps forward, but they require no commitment, no structure, no risk. They allow the customer to stay completely in control without ever making a decision. Real buying signals look different. They sound like, I can come in at 2 o'clock. Is 11:30 good for you? I'm heading over now. If everything checks out, I'm ready to move forward today. The difference is not complexity, it's clarity. Real buyers don't just ask questions. They start organizing action. Fake intent stays in conversation. Real intent moves toward structure. This is where many salespeople misread the situation, because human nature pushes you to value engagement. If someone is talking to you, responding quickly, or asking detailed questions, it feels like momentum. But momentum without direction is not progress, it's noise. The real indicator of intent is whether the customer is willing to commit to a specific time. That single detail changes everything, because once a time is set, the conversation shifts from exploration to execution. Until then, everything is still optional, and optional behavior is not buying behavior. Another important distinction is urgency. Fake intent often uses soft language. I'll probably come by. I might check it out. I should be there sometime. Real intent removes ambiguity. I'll be there at 1:15. Let's do 4 o'clock. I'm on my way. There's no hedging, no flexibility, just action. The mistake many salespeople make is trying to move fake signals into real ones without recognizing the gap. They keep responding. They keep explaining. They keep waiting for the conversation to develop, but fake signals don't naturally evolve into intent on their own. They only change when structure is introduced. That's why asking for a time is not pushy, it's necessary. It forces the customer to either step into a real buying process, or stay in information mode. And once that distinction is clear, your job becomes much easier. You stop treating every conversation like a potential close. You start categorizing them correctly. Is this a structured beer? Or an informational shopper? Because structured buyers can be worked toward a deal. Informational shoppers cannot, at least not yet. They need a different kind of interaction. Not more effort, but more clarity. This is where most inconsistency in sales comes from. Not from lack of opportunity, but from misreading signals. Once you start separating real from fake buying behavior, you stop over-investing in the wrong people, and that frees you up to focus your time where it actually converts. Because in the end, sales isn't about responding to interest. It's about recognizing intent and acting on it only when it becomes real. Chapter 7. The cost of chasing maybe deals. Every salesperson thinks they're losing money because they don't have enough leads. But in reality, A lot of money is lost because the wrong leads are getting too much attention. These are the maybe deals. They're the customers who are always close but never committed. They ask for information. They compare options. They stay in contact just enough to feel active, but they rarely move into structure. And the dangerous part is, they don't feel like bad leads. They feel like almost their deals. So, you treat them that way. You respond quickly. You stay available. You keep the conversation alive. You make yourself flexible just in case they're ready. But here's what actually happens. While you're chasing maybe, you're not building yes. Maybe deals consume your time in small increments. Asterisk a few texts here. Asterisk a pricing breakdown there. Asterisk a follow-up check-in. Asterisk a just circling back message. Individually, none of it feels significant. But together, it adds up 2 hours of energy spent on conversations that are not moving forward. And because there's no clear ending point, they stay in your system longer than they should. This is what makes them expensive. Not because they reject you, but because they occupy space that should be used for real opportunities. The worst part is the psychological effect. Maybe deals create false productivity. You feel busy because asterisk your phone is active. Asterisk your inbox is moving. Asterisk customers are responding. But busy is not the same as effective. You can spend an entire day handling maybe deals and still end the day without a single structured appointment or confirmed sale. That's not lack of effort, that's misallocated effort. And it becomes a cycle, because the more time you invest in uncertain deals, the less time you have to create new, qualified opportunities. So, your pipeline fills with conversations that never mature. Meanwhile, real buyers often require less effort, but more clarity. They don't need endless back and forth. They need structure, confirmation, and execution. But if your attention is tied up in maybe deals, you can actually miss those real buyers or respond to them with less urgency because your focus is scattered. That's the hidden cost. Not just lost time but diluted attention. Breaking this cycle requires a shift in thinking. Instead of asking, asterisk, how can I keep this customer engaged? You start asking, asterisk, is this worth structuring into an appointment? If the answer is no, then the conversation should not be consuming active mental energy. It can be parked, paused, or deprioritized. This doesn't mean ignoring customers. It means assigning value correctly. Not every conversation deserves equal weight. The goal is not to respond less, it's to respond with intention. Because chasing maybe deals often feels like momentum, but it quietly prevents real momentum from building. And over time, that becomes the difference between inconsistent sales and consistent performance. The salespeople who win long-term are not the ones who respond to everything. They are the ones who quickly identify what is real and let everything else stop consuming their time. Because in this business, your income is not just determined by how many conversations you have. It's determined by how many of those conversations become structured opportunities. And maybe deals almost never do unless they are converted early into clarity or removed from your focus entirely. Chapter 8. Why serious buyers set structure. If you watch enough customers over time, a pattern becomes obvious. Serious buyers don't just express interest, they create structure. They don't leave the process open-ended, they define it. This is one of the clearest differences between real intent and everything else, because when someone is actually ready to buy, they don't want ambiguity. They don't want to see how the day goes. They don't want to maybe swing by. They don't want to keep things loose. They want a plan, a time, a place, a next step. That structure is not something you have to force, it's something they naturally move toward, because serious buyers are operating with internal urgency. Something is already driving them toward a decision, even if they don't fully articulate it. Maybe it's timing, maybe it's necessity, maybe it's frustration with their current situation. Whatever it is, it creates direction, and direction always produces structure. That's why real buyers say things like, asterisk, what time works for you? Asterisk, I can be there at 3:30. Asterisk, let's lock something in. They are not just gathering information anymore. They are organizing action. Fake intent does the opposite. It avoids structure as long as possible, not because the customer is trying to be difficult, but because they are still undecided. So, instead of committing to a time, They keep it flexible. Asterisk, I'll stop by after errands. Asterisk, I'm not sure yet. I'll let you know. Asterisk, I might come later today. Flexibility feels safe when a decision hasn't been made. It keeps options open. It avoids pressure. But in sales, flexibility without structure is a signal. It tells you the decision has not been made yet. And that's important, because many salespeople misinterpret flexibility as a buying stage instead of a decision stage. They think, asterisk, they're just busy. Asterisk, they'll confirm later. Asterisk, they're still coming, just not sure when. But serious buyers don't leave timing undefined for long, because once someone is truly committed to moving forward, uncertainty becomes unnecessary. They want it scheduled. This is where the concept of control becomes important. Serious buyers are not just willing to accept structure, they prefer it. They want to know, asterisk, when they are coming in, asterisk, who they are meeting, asterisk, what will happen next. Because structure reduces friction. It makes the process easier, not harder. That's why appointments with real buyers feel different. There is clarity. There is direction. There is follow-through. You don't have to chase confirmation repeatedly. It already exists, and that is the signal most salespeople should learn to recognize earlier in the process. Not just what the customer is saying, but how they are behaving around time. Because time commitment is one of the strongest indicators of intent. When a customer, asterisk, picks a specific time, asterisk, shows up at that time, asterisk, engages directly in the process, you are no longer guessing. The deal becomes real. Everything before that is still evaluation. This is why structure is not something you add at the end of a sale. It is something that reveals the seriousness of the beer at the beginning. And once you understand that, your approach changes. You stop trying to keep every conversation alive. You start looking for one thing. Does this person create structure or avoid it? Because structure is the difference between someone exploring and someone deciding. And in sales, decisions are what actually move deals forward, not conversations, not interest, not intention. Structure. Chapter 9. How to force clarity without being pushy. Most salespeople avoid being direct because they don't want to sound aggressive. So, instead of asking for clarity, they soften everything. Asterisk, let me know when you're free. Asterisk, no rush at all. Asterisk, just swing by whenever works. It feels polite. It feels flexible. It feels customer-friendly. But what it actually does is remove structure from the conversation. And without structure, there is no appointment, only possibility. The goal here is not to pressure the customer. It's to remove ambiguity. Because ambiguity is where fake intent survives. The skill is learning how to ask for clarity in a way that feels natural, not forceful. It starts with one simple shift. Stop accepting open-ended statements at face value. When a customer says, asterisk, I'll come by later. Asterisk, I'm running errands. Asterisk, I should be there this morning. You don't respond with more flexibility. You respond with structure, not emotion, not urgency. Structure. Because structure is neutral. It's not pushy, it's professional. The simplest tool is also the most effective. The time question. Instead of, asterisk, sounds good, just let me know, you ask, asterisk, what time works best for you? Instead of, asterisk, okay, see you later. You ask, asterisk, do you want to do earlier around 11 o'clock or closer to 2 o'clock? This does something important. It forces a decision point. The customer now has to either, asterisk, choose a time, or, asterisk, stay non-committal. And that distinction is exactly what you want. Because clarity is not about controlling the customer. It's about identifying readiness. A serious beer will usually respond without hesitation. Asterisk, to 30 works. Asterisk, I can be there at 12. Asterisk, let's do 4 o'clock. They don't resist structure. They complete it. On the other hand, someone who is not ready will often respond vaguely again. Asterisk, I'll see how my day goes. Asterisk, I'll text you when I'm done. Asterisk, not sure yet. I'll let you know. And now you have clarity not about the deal, but about the stage. That's the real purpose of forcing clarity. It's not just to schedule appointments. It's to identify where the customer actually is in the process. Another important part of this skill is tone. Forcing clarity does not mean sounding demanding. It means sounding certain. There is a difference between, asterisk, when exactly are you coming in, and asterisk what time works best for you. One creates pressure, the other creates structure. One puts the customer on defense, the other puts them in a decision-making position. That difference is everything, because sales is not about pushing harder, it's about removing confusion. And confusion is what allows fake intent to stay alive. When you introduce clarity, you either asterisk move the deal forward, or asterisk expose that it wasn't a real appointment yet. Either outcome is useful, because now you are no longer operating blindly. You are operating with information. This is the part most people avoid. They prefer vague comfort over clear outcomes. They would rather keep a maybe alive than risk hearing uncertainty. But uncertainty is not a setback, it's a filter. And the faster you filter, the more control you gain over your time. So, the goal is simple. Never let a conversation stay in sometime mode. Always bring it back to asterisk a time, asterisk a place, asterisk or a clear next step. Not because you are forcing the sale, but because you are defining the process. And once the process is defined, the serious buyers reveal themselves immediately. Everything else does not. That is how you stay professional without being pushy, and how you turn conversations into real appointments instead of endless possibilities. Chapter 10. The Appointment Test Simple Rule. At this point, the pattern should be clear. Most sales problems don't come from lack of interest. They come from lack of structure, and structure is the fastest way to separate real buyers from everything else. So, instead of overthinking every conversation, you need a simple rule you can apply immediately, a filter, a test, something that tells you, in real time, whether this is worth your attention or not. Here it is. If there is no confirmed time, there is no appointment. That's it. Not kind of a time. Not later today. Not after errands. Not I'll let you know. A real appointment only exists when a specific time has been agreed to. This single rule removes most of the confusion in sales, because once you apply it consistently, you stop treating uncertainty like progress, and that changes how you operate every day. When a customer messages you, asterisk I'll swing by this morning, you don't think, good, they're coming. You think, asterisk there is no appointment yet. When they say, asterisk I should be there around 10, you don't block your whole morning. You think, asterisk not confirmed, still flexible, needs structure, and then you act accordingly. You either asterisk convert it into a real time, or asterisk treat it as unconfirmed until it becomes one. There is no middle ground. This is where most salespeople lose control of their day. They allow almost appointments to behave like real ones, so their calendar becomes filled with invisible uncertainty. Asterisk people who might show up, asterisk people who might text, asterisk people who might come later, and all of it forces them into standby mode. But once you apply the appointment test, your schedule becomes cleaner immediately. Now you only operate with 3 categories. 1. Confirmed appointments. These have a time, a place, and a commitment. 2. Developing leads. These are conversations that need structure before they matter. 3. Non-committed interest. These are people gathering information with no defined action. Most frustration in sales comes from mixing all 3 together. The appointment test forces separation, and separation creates clarity, because once something is clearly labeled, you stop overinvesting in it emotionally or operationally. You stop rearranging your day for it. You stop waiting on it. You either structure it or you move on. This is also where consistency in performance comes from, not from working more hours, but from working only on what is real, because time is not just something you spend in sales. It's something you allocate based on probability, and confirmed appointments are high probability. Everything else is not. So, the rule stays simple. If there is no time, there is no appointment, and if there is no appointment, there is no reason to organize your day around it. This mindset does not make you less responsive. It makes you more accurate. You still engage customers. You still answer questions. You still build relationships, but you stop confusing conversation with commitment. And that is the shift that changes everything, because once you stop chasing uncertainty, you finally have space to focus on what actually closes. Real appointments, real buyers, real structure. Conclusion: if you strip everything back, sales isn't really about how many conversations you can handle. It's about how many of those conversations turn into real, structured appointments, because conversations are everywhere. Interest is everywhere. Questions, comparisons, and I might come by later messages are constant. What's rare is clarity, a confirmed time, a committed beer, a defined next step, and that's where most salespeople lose control, not in the closing, but in the beginning, in the space where everything still feels possible, but nothing is actually decided. The difference between a busy salesperson and a successful one often comes down to this. One responds to everything, the other filters what deserves structure. When you stop treating maybe as momentum, your entire approach changes. You stop waiting for people who never confirmed. You stop building your day around uncertainty. You stop confusing engagement with intent. And instead, you start operating from structure. Asterisk real appointments. Asterisk real-time commitments. Asterisk real buyers. That shift doesn't just improve your closing rate, it protects your energy, your focus, and your consistency. Because the truth is, you don't need more opportunities, you need fewer distractions. And once you understand how to separate real appointments from fake intent, you stop working harder just to stay busy. You start working with precision. And in sales, precision is what creates consistency. Not every interested customer deserves your time, only the ones who can define it. Everything else is just noise until it becomes structure. And once you see that clearly, you don't go back to guessing, you operate differently. You build your day around what is confirmed. You let everything else earn its way into structure, and you protect your time like it actually matters, because it does. That's the real change. Not selling more, but knowing what is actually real.